been told, was a 25-watt light bulb. It burned 24 hours a day. So this bulb has been burning 24 hours a day since we set this up back in February. That cell over to the right, we've actually put a mannequin in there to give you a perspective on how much or how little room there was in the cell. These are solitary cells. You can see in the picture, this is a double cell. Sam Johnson spent 42 months in a solitary cell. And another 3.5 years in other types of cells. A total of 7 years. We had all this stuff made locally, the ironwork was made locally, so, and it looks very much like it does in the pictures. This was just an empty corner of the basement that we built. Scattered around here, just various memorabilia. I mean, you see a lot more of this kind of stuff upstairs. I was land-based in Da Nang. What we mostly caught were rockets. This is a piece of shrapnel from a 122mm rocket.
Oh, sure.
And RPG, or rocket propelled grenade launcher. I was watching the news last week. They still use these, exactly like these in Afghanistan, because they were originally Russian made. The Russians left a bunch of them there when they pulled out of Afghanistan. They're still in use. Upstairs in one of the cases, there's a bustier that says Viet Cong spy bustier. Well, these are the shoes that go with it. Allegedly, she was a dancer at one of our clubs. And when I started working here, they made a big deal. Well, she was a spy. I said, well, most of them were. So that's not a surprise. Very, very common. I ended up being in criminal investigations, and one of our jobs was to do background checks on Vietnamese civilians. And we worked with the Naval Intelligence Service. They kept the records. We had to go down there and go through the list of known Viet Cong collaborators. They were not computerized. They were on huge handwritten ledgers. We would have to flip through to try to find their ID numbers. One of the things we wanted to build, we had a committee meeting back in January. We said we want to build a sandbag bunker. These are very common around pretty much all the bases. And I said, yeah, we can build a sandbag bunker, but we're not going to use sand. We're too old to be dragging this stuff around. So there's bark mulch in that. So when and if we ever take this down, we can dump it in the flower beds upstairs.
We're too old to be dragging it around.
Yeah, we're not going to drag sandbags around. Sandbags this size weighs out 60 pounds or so. I filled plenty of them when I was in Da Nang. You didn't want to sit around and look like you were doing nothing, because they say, well, why don't you go over here and fill some sandbags? Yeah, poncho liner back there. There's another one upstairs, folding trenching tool here. This is a later model version of it. It's a replica M16. It's actually a training weapon that I never saw. It's made out of solid rubber, and it is heavy. The guy that loaned it to us said that they used those in their training where they would walk through a trench full of water with that over their heads. And because this weighed like 5 times as much as a regular M16, it was a strength training tool as well. To give you an idea of the bunkers, these are actual photographs. This is actually the back perimeter of the base I was on. I personally spent quite a few hours in that tower before I went over to criminal investigations. This bunker's on the other side of the air base at Da Nang. That was a Marine bunker. This is actually a 2-in-1. You've got a fighting bunker on top and a personnel bunker on the bottom. When a rocket attacks would begin, everybody was supposed to go to their personnel bunker. When our attacks stopped, they were supposed to go to their fighting position if they had one, or to their assigned position. In the Da Nang area, every barracks or hooch, depending on what you slept in, had a big personnel bunker outside. And when you first get in country, first thing you're going to do, you hear the red alert sirens go off, you run to the bunker. Well, being on a Navy base, we quickly discovered they really weren't shooting at us very often. They wanted the air base or the Marine helicopter base that was down the road. And so you'd lay in bed, the sirens would go off, and you'd hear the rockets begin to land. And if they didn't get very close, you'd just roll over and go back to sleep. And one night, though, they got very close, and everybody jumped out of bed. People that had never been to the bunker in their lives were in the bunker. So, anyway, any questions or comments about this kind of thing? What did you talk about? Were you the Navy? Were you the Navy?
I was Navy.
Yeah.
Navy
okay.
guy.
One day, because I was Navy in Da Nang. And I loved your speech about the Navy. One thing you left out though, was that in Da Nang, when I got there, there were 10,000 U.S. personnel based on the ground in Da Nang, not associated with ships.
Oh, yeah, NSA today.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
exactly. Oh, no, the whole talk, yeah.
That's, yeah, I was just reading, I wrote a book about it, and I was just reading the statistics on it. In 1969, we provided 98% of all the supplies, not just to the Navy and Marines, but to the Air Force and to the Army that was in I Corps.
Yeah.
So it was 190,000 troops.
You know, I-Corps was a separate
But,
arena.
yeah, it was
NSA
Navy Marines.
Saigon, yeah, NSA Saigon
I don't know how many they
had
had.
corps, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4.
Yeah,
Mostly 3, I mean, just around Saigon,
yeah.
yeah, and the river, mostly. But yeah.
Appreciate what you did up there.
Well, a lot of the guys there were in supplies and unloading ships and all that stuff. I got lucky. I got shoveled off into security, and then I made it over into CID. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was good. Any down here upstairs? There's a lot more pieces of memorabilia. These are letters from a POW. Well, it's a combination of letters. The first one is a guy writing to the wife of his wingman. He knew her. He's saying that he's sorry her husband was shot down, but we saw his parachute. We know he made it to the ground. Helicopters came in to try to rescue him. That ground fire was too heavy. We don't know exactly what happened to him. And it's a series of letters back and forth. And finally, she gets a letter from her husband 2 years later saying, I did survive, I'm in prison. So,
Not a good letter. Well, yeah, maybe a good letter.
it was a good letter, because she didn't know. Well, it's like these POW wives here with Ross Perot.
The bad part of it.
They,
Bad part of it, he was in prison.
these wives went to our government, 2 of them are from Dallas, went to our government and said, hey, we need information on our husband. We don't know if we're widows, we don't know if they're POW, we have no idea. And they were told by our government to go home and they would call them when they needed to talk to them. So with the help of Ross Perot, they found out there was a North Vietnamese embassy in Paris. And they went to Paris and made direct contact with the North Vietnamese. At first, they couldn't get anywhere with them, but after several trips, they actually did get information and did start.
What year was that, Ray?
71 or so. It's in the DVD. There's a long interview about it. So we just reduced the price of those to $5. They're upstairs. So, but
It must have been terrible on those girls, you
Oh, it
know,
was.
not knowing where her husband was or.
yeah, and our government didn't want to talk to them. So, yeah, it's quite a story. There's a long interview with, I can't remember which one it is, but one of the ladies in that photograph. If you look in the background, I don't know if you lived in Dallas a long time, the guy in the door, he used to be a newsman with Channel 8 back in the 60s.
I recognize him, I can't remember his
I
name.
can't either.
I see Perot right there.
Oh, yeah, pros are.
So that says peace on? What does that say, peace on? Yeah, on the,
Peace.
peace
Right here.
on.
Oh,
Is that on the,
that's on the plane. That's interesting. I had not noticed that.
huh?
Yeah, Braniff, that's what I flew to Da Nang on, was a bright orange Braniff plane.
Really?
I was afraid it made too good a target. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so
Well, I
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
you're welcome.